Listening to Fear is part 2 of the season's odd, bleak trilogy, and while there are a couple of memorable bits, really, overall,
I hate it.
That pretty much sums it up. The episode opens with the girls keeping Mom company and stealing her Jell-O. Joyce is post-diagnosis but pre-surgery, reminding us of where we left things after Fool for Love and Shadow. Buffy tells Joyce that Riley and the gang are out covering for her on patrol, but the gang is kicking undead Tookus without him. For some reason, Willow's outfit stands out to me here, neither young nerdy nor mayor of Wickistan. Sans Terra, perhaps she doesn't bother? She just looks like a plain old boring adult that could almost be Giles' date. Turns out Riley was someplace else. Willow stops by for a gift of us with the Summers, and Joyce has a...
I'd rip it in half and stick it in bed with me.
Moment? Another of Glory's victims has a momentary fixation on Dawn. Resident Ben notices. Willow and Tara share one of the episode's 2 major highlights, a behind blue eyes type of moment that I've noticed a lot of fans remember but seem to forget what episode it's in. As the two cuddle, Kal-El's distant cousin Darren crashes to Earth and kills Glory's brain-wipe victim from earlier. The gang investigates the ceiling turd with a face and discovers the murder. Riley sends them away and calls the government because what Season 5 really needed was a return to the authenticity and realism of the Season 4 military stuff. Buffy gets everyone home and makes the room pleasantly dark for Joyce and Godzilla's tapeworm. The gang is doing research at the University Library Astronomy section, a set I only really remember from this one episode, which is surprising because this is really kind of a neat prop.
The most recent meteoric anomaly was the Tunguska blast in Russia in 1917.
The Tunguska, as opposed to Kundusta thing, in Russia she's referring to, happened in 1908. I say odd since the Bolshevik Revolution is actually what began in 1917, and the gang figures out the demon is a queller demon, summoned to quell the rising tide of Glory's victims. Quell is a term often used in reference to rebellions. Such a specific crossing of the timetables feels curiously deliberate. Then again, in the Buffyverse, where there are vengeance demons granting wishes all the time, who knows if these events might have been altered slightly. The gang wonders at who summoned Satan's Dingleberry. At home, Joyce is full-on talking to herself. Buffy puts on some groovy tunes to drown her out and starts crying. Cut to a truly unnerving scene in Joyce's bedroom where what the orc ate for dinner last night falls on her and tries to kill her. Dawn comes to Mom's aid. Buffy hears the fight at the last minute and saves the day with Spike, who is once again, and unlike Riley, in the right place at the right time. And the episode ends by revealing to us that Ben was the one who summoned the Joss Whedon, and Joyce knows that Dawn is not her real daughter. Listening to Fear is probably my least favorite episode of Season 5, but Season 5 is so good that means that bar is somewhere in the realm of it's just pretty alright. It's okay, it's fine. I mentioned that there is a sort of informal, dreary trilogy of episodes here at the heart of an otherwise inspiring season, and this one picks up in the trilogy where Shadow left off. It feels like there's a lot going on, from Riley's continued emotional descent to Joyce's awareness of Dawn to that lovely scene between Tara and Willow to Sarah Michelle Gellar's beautiful moment in the kitchen. On the surface, it's all very busy and interesting, but listening to Fear feels like it has that occasional Buffy cart leads horse problem where the plot might have been invented to carry a theme and some symbols that were constructed well in advance. Glory has victims that are capable of detecting Dawn, the military has Geiger counters to detect the monster, Joyce's illness and Buffy caring for Dawn fit the show's allegory of growing up, crossing into a stage of life where we might have children of our own, or our parents, who raised and cared for us, now need us to do the same for them, etc., etc. But the thread trying to stitch all of those disparate elements together is a crushingly heavy-handed X-Files derivative tale about the search for a killer snot monster from outer space.
I did not say that.
There is some self-awareness of the connections. Tunguska is the title of a pretty memorable X-Files episode directed by Kim Manners from Season 4, and the Queller Demon bears a resemblance to the Fluke Man played by Darren Morgan in Season 2's episode The Host. Pretty much everyone in the late 90s was borrowing from the X-Files, so no big. The problem is, we know from Buffy Season 4 that neither of the show's strengths are authenticity with science fiction or shadowy government intrigue. Buffy is way less with the...
Start with the basic mobilization pattern. 3 teams. Sweep and search just like practice.
And
This is your objective. Sub-T 67119.
and way more with the
Buffy, I can't take you with me.
You're not taking me with you. I am going and I am letting you come along.
and the
Yes, I am a lesbian.
And whenever they go back to this particular well, which mercifully isn't all that often, I can't help counting the seconds until the next magic spell or dancing demon. Dancing demon. Wait. Something isn't right here. Whatever. The result is the episode's plot feels like a slog compared to the Archie bits. In terms of dramatic weight, Joyce's illness carries absurdly more for us than the monster business, but this one wastes so much time in silly scenes where I'm sitting there thinking, how in the Hecate has no one noticed that stupid ceiling turd with a face? And ignoring the one-off plot, the through-line stuff is fine, but none of those elements really get moved along by the episode. The inversion of Buffy and Joyce's relationship gets mostly dropped after this one, and the only development otherwise is Dawn starting to suspect something is up. This feels like 10 minutes of interesting holding pattern material, handled all very clunky and repetitively.
You're nothing. You're a shadow.
Yeah, we get it, guys. Listening to Fear also contains a heavy dose of some of Buffy's 5th season that is aging poorly.
There's no data.
Those eyes, they're like gasoline puddles.
Can't loiter. There's no loitering. That's why I'm a cat.
The season's portrayal of mental illness. Now, before anyone gets surly with me and tells me it's an old fantasy show and I should lighten up, let me make my usual acknowledgments. These are not indictments. Historical context matters, and that is one of the reasons the term dated exists. But part of celebrating what works and what we still love today means acknowledging what doesn't, not simply pretending it doesn't exist. There's a simple acid test for this sort of thing. Does the story give the controversial issue or historically marginalized group the same sort of relative human value, dignity, or justice it normally provides its main characters? The Buffyverse can be pretty good about this kind of thing. Already in Angel's season, running parallel to this one, we had Judy and Bethany's stories. Both were shown to have agency and value.
You've got the power. Use it.
Examples where the Buffyverse got this wrong might be the text ignoring the sexual violence committed against Riley by Faith in Who Are You, even going so far as implying he had some responsibility for his own assault, or the twins that were sleeping with the magic mojo Jonathan in Superstar. Everyone, including Xander being attracted to Jonathan, is humorous until the episode literalizes it with the twins. The twins are even used for humor again at the end of the episode when Jonathan pitifully tells Buffy,
And the twins moved out.
as though she is supposed to feel bad for him. This specific repetition of the Revenge of the Nerds or 16 Candles' ignorance of consent is so odd because 2 seasons later the show revisits almost exactly the same scenario with Jonathan, but does so with strikingly different results. So the question remains, does the episode give the issue of mental health and the people affected by it relative human value, dignity, or justice? Well, Joyce's bout of aphasia does feel gritty, unpleasant, and real. There are a couple of nice moments here and there where Buffy supports her sister, and that's just about the only positive thing I can say about the portrayal. On the negative side, you have the fact that the symptom comes completely out of nowhere for Joyce and is never seen again after this episode. The season is playing with the idea of sanity as an element to its theme.
I think there's something that happens in people's brains when there's something wrong. It's like a short circuit. And it makes them feel like nothing's real except for them.
But ignoring that, this all seems to exist for a bit of unpleasant drama in a single episode. However, all of that feels like an exercise in profound subtlety in comparison to the episode's most damning bit, which is the fact that Mr. Butthole Chin the intern murderizes 6 human beings by summoning the Queller demon, the trail of brain-sucked victims that Glory has been amassing. Now, surely this will come to light, right? Remember when Faith stabbed one teensy-weensy little government employee by accident, no less, and we had to endure a couple of episodes of Buffy being all like, wow, morals and stuff. Surely Ben gets the same treatment, or receives some kind of justice specifically for the fact that he murdered 6 people.
Spoiler alert.
He doesn't. Transgressions are immediately forgotten by the next episode, and there are even points in the upcoming season where we're expected to either like or feel bad for him. Ben, who murdered 6 people.
I hate it.
Returning to our test, the reason why that is because none of the 6 people in this episode are considered people by the script. They're just quote-unquote crazy. Still though, as with any episode of the show, there's an unforgettable moment or two. From the aforementioned Tillo, Warm and Fuzzies to Sarah Michelle Gellar's breakdown in the kitchen. I'd always thought the tune on the radio Buffy turns on was especially strange. After all, the show has used many popular tunes at this point, and this season's score by Thomas Wanker has been cinematic and at times beautiful. But this song is so different. The same bits, over and over and over again. Usually episode titles allow for a couple of different interpretations. We discussed in the previous how Riley has been listening to his own fears about Buffy for a while now, and those fears have been shaping his perspective on the world, vectoring the shape of his downward spiral. Earlier parts of the season felt so comforting in the ways they represented the day-in, day-out stability of familiar life. But shadows can creep in when we aren't paying attention. A moment ignored because you told yourself you'd get back to it when there was time. A test. Things unaddressed begin to pile up, and that whisper of fear becomes a hum. Eventually, that noise becomes the loud, driving, cacophonous weight of the world that can't be ignored as we come crashing to its final destination that now feels inexorable, inevitable.
Death wish.
Despair.
And also, some of the stars we're looking at don't even exist anymore. And the time that it takes for their light to reach us, they've died, exploded. Poof.